Well, this is David McElroy for the Human Potential Channel. I have an exciting guest that I had an introduction from someone that we share mutually in business. And we had a chat, and I listened to how she thought and her general energy. And I thought my guests need to hear this. Hey, do us a favor, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this with your friends. The more people that share positive thinking and thoughts, we as a group have a positive impact on the world. And the more followers we get, the more people we get, and it feeds on itself. So please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and put your comments down below. Send us some guests. We need some guests. So, Cindy, I will let you introduce yourself. If you feel compelled to get up and sing and dance, I'm sure the audience would appreciate that. Otherwise, talk would be acceptable.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, David. This is a lot of fun. My name is Cindy Birkland. I have been in Las Vegas for the last 28 years. I hail from Portland, Oregon via Montana. So I started in the snow. I was raised in Montana in the snow, went to Oregon for the rain, and then I've been in the sun for the last 28 years. Don't think I'm going anywhere unless it's Miami. So I ended up in Vegas because I had started out in the mortgage business as a very young lady and was promoted very quickly up the ranks, and they gave me an office in Las Vegas when I was 26 years old.
Wow.
So I moved out here to work for a mortgage bank and got out here and had a whole lot of employees that were age 40 and over. They didn't quite take to having a young, whippersnapper as a manager. So I really got to learn about management and that kind of thing when I first got started in the business. Eventually grew to open up my own mortgage company, had 85 salespeople working for me. I had about 15 people on staff working for me to take care of those salespeople. I've been in the mortgage business for now about 30 years. And then in 2013, I opened up my own financial services company. So life insurance, annuities, premium financing. And I did that because I was referring out so many of my mortgage clients to financial planners. And I'm thinking, I have probably referred out maybe $250,000 or more this year. Like, what am I doing? I need to keep this money for myself. So I ended up in financial services in 2013, and then got into venture capital about a year and a half ago, and learned very quickly that the game of money is broken. On that level, I thought, oh my gosh, I hate this. I couldn't get a single deal closed for a year and a half. The venture capitalists I was working with, I'm like, do you even have any money? Why won't you give any of it? It was so crazy. Yeah. So I decided that I would open up my own company for venture capital and trading. So I opened up my private equity firm about 6 months ago. It's called Veracore Capital Group.
Yeah.
I am the founder and CEO of Veracore Capital Group. And so I've been doing that. So I set up my own liquidity program. I have a trade desk. We're doing very, very well in that, and doing venture capital deals. But then discovered Alt Funds Global with you. Tamor introduced us. So a new lending option for big business. So I am really excited about my journey that I've had along the way with helping people get financing. So now pretty much anything you need from soup to nuts, I'm kind of the girl that can get it done. And I'm really enjoying what I've been up to. And then talking to you, we had so much in common, and you had this almost a similar background. So it was really neat to meet you. And now here we are, so that's kind of my business side.
I've noticed that there is so much clickbait of negative information. You could spend your whole life dwelling on the world coming apart at the seams. And I don't believe that to be true. Certainly there's problems. There's always been problems. Whether you talk about climate or you talk about business or you talk about, it doesn't matter. So what have you found over the course of your life, or certainly career? It sounds like you've taken a an entrepreneurial move over the last decade, maybe, to add to your business background. What have you found keeps you running when things come up that are disappointing obstacles, maybe that period of time where you didn't get any deals funded, that keeps you moving forward?
Well, what I've learned is, he who solves the most problems makes the most money. So if I have a problem, I know that that's just an opportunity to make money. So in my lifetime, I've always opened up businesses that are relevant to a business. Like here, I have mortgage, and always people that have extra cash in their house, but don't feel like they can afford their retirement. I'm like, okay, well, how could this be structured? So I ended up, after referring out countless amount of deals, I could do a better job of layering them and placing their money and helping them with retirement because, I had a slogan when I ran my mortgage company, and that was manage your mortgage, manage your life. So I was helping people, their mortgage wasn't just the mortgage on their house. It was like, okay, how are we adjusting for this? Or what are we going to do with this money that's in your equity, or all those kind of things. So for me, when I ran into problems in business, I would just create a company or open a company that would help and support my other company rather than refer out the business to somebody else. And that's how I've kind of collected companies along the way. And also how I ended up with having a foundation. So I have a foundation called Nevada's Giving, and that's being in solution for Nevada's kids. So just always being in a solution mindset.
So when you run into a problem, particularly if it's a big one that catches you by surprise, does that ever upset you for a period of time? And if it does, what do you do to shorten that reactionary period back to the where's the opportunity question?
Right. When I guess I've learned to look at problems as opportunities. It's just a reframe, problem versus opportunity. Um, but I have a very strong faith in God. And for me, the Bible must say 200 plus times, do not fear. Do not fear. There's a reason the Bible says that. So when I start feeling fear or anxiousness about a situation or a problem, I have to remember that God always solves my problems. If I sit and think and pray and meditate on it long enough and I ask for the answers, it always comes to me. So I've just learned, I learned a long time ago that I made God the CEO of my life and my company. When God is your CEO, the master of the universe, you can make your plans very large. So for me, I that's kind of my solution to everything is take it to him first because he knows all the answers.
So when you feel that sensation of fear, what you have learned is that's an indication of opportunity. Even though fear doesn't feel comfortable, it's an attention getter, right? It's like
Yeah,
being angry. You can stay in anger or you can do something useful with it. So, do you have a practice that is so common to you, you don't even realize you're doing it, where you go from, oh, this feeling, fear, where's the opportunity? Is there a practice that you use that helps you make that
absolutely.
transition?
Every day. So it for me, I'll be laying in bed at night and I'm recapping my day, and I'll be there like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, especially when I was opening up my private equity firm, like everyone's like, are you crazy? Like, do you know how long that's going to take? And do you even know what you're doing? And I'm like, no. But I would lay in bed at night and I would say, God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I need a broker dealer. That's the next step. Would you send me someone? And then the very next day, I would just put it out there to my people or my friends. Hey, I need a broker dealer. And they're like, oh, you should talk to so and so. And then I find out he's the very same broker dealer that just handled the Trump fund. So
Experienced, you'd
he's the
say.
same guy that's handling Donald Trump's stuff. And I'm like, thanks, God. Like who
Yeah.
knew that I would be getting that person, So every time I ask God, he always gives me more than I could ask or think. So I just go to him because I'm like, okay, I'm right here. I don't know what I need to do right now. Just tell me and bring me the right person. And then it goes from there. I do this because I've just learned before I dedicated my life to God, that everything was difficult. And now I can make it easy by just asking him first. He knows all the answers.
So how long did it take you to learn that skill so it became natural?
Hmm. I would want to say it came through a practice because this started in 2008, but when I really got really back into the seriousness of business, I would want to say it was, I go probably about 2018 that I really started to getting into a flow with just like, I'm not very good on my own. I need God's help on this. So for me, I would say since 2018. So it's been probably the last 5 years, and business has been really easy. I've had, since that time, I opened up my foundation, I opened up Veracore Capital, and just a private equity firm. There's a lot of bells and whistles to that. So I could have never done this without help. Never. So how would I know? I've never done it before, you know? So just asking God to line up all those right people. And then just like that, remember when I met Timur and he was like, you should talk to David. And all the wealth and the information you have available, that's for me. Because I mean, that's just God's way of lining people up for me.
So
So
let's
I
think
just
about let's think about that for a moment. Have you ever had a bad day and you notice when you're having a bad day that everyone irritates you, everyone's in your way, and you feel like you're at combat with the world? Have you ever had a day like that?
oh sure.
And if you imagine when you feel like that, you seem to create more of that. In fact, have you ever been around someone that's so unpleasant, you just think to yourself, I need to get away from them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when we're in that frame of mind, we're sending that vibe out. So when a good person comes by us, they want to get away from us. And the only people that want to associate with us are other combative people. So when you notice you're starting to feel at dis-ease, out of order, you're at combat, what do you do to bring yourself back? Because my experience is when I'm really mad, I don't want to not be mad. I want to kind of stay there and justify. So I have practices I go through, but do you have one you say, oh man, this is going no place good, that causes you to pull back from that anger, that frustration, and transform it?
When my day starts going a hard left, when I know it should be going right, I literally will stop. I've learned to do this. Like, I literally shut everything down. I shut my phone off. I literally leave like right now I'm working from home since COVID.
Yeah.
And I literally will leave my office and go into another room and literally get into prayer time, prayer and meditation. And I take maybe 20 minutes out and just say, okay, God, I have somehow gotten this day completely derailed. And that came from turning it over to myself instead of turning it over to you. So I'm going to turn this day right back over to you. And I'm going to let you going to take it from here. I literally make a point of doing that, because if I don't, and I'm left to my own devices, I will cuss somebody out or do
Yeah.
something I do not want to do. So I literally have learned to just be still, just check out 20 minutes and come back at it. And if I don't feel that peace, I won't go back at it until I do. Because
Pause when
the
irritated.
day will not continue the right way if I don't get to that peaceful place.
No, it'll feed on itself. You'll just get more and more spun out, attract more and more people that are spun out. And heaven forbid if you would say something that's not retractable.
Absolutely. Yep. It's
Yeah.
not worth it.
Yeah.
So oftentimes if my day starts to get, like, the longer I'm at it, if things start going sideways, I have no problem shutting the day down early. If I was going to work till 5 and it's 4 and I don't feel like I'm progressing, I just shut it down. Because there's just no, I'm not going to push a stone uphill. It
Sure.
needs to be easy.
So what I hear you saying is that when you're trying to control the uncontrollable, which is everybody else, people can't be controlled. They can maybe be managed, maybe be directed, but they can't be controlled.
That's right.
That's when you feel frustrated, maybe angry, maybe get into the combative mode. If you break away from that, because our body's filled with chemicals when we're in that frame of mind, all sorts of stress chemicals, which causes us to
Yeah.
remember all the times we felt that way, and we bring up old stuff we haven't thought of for years
Yeah.
and pile it on. So you have to have your body have a chance to release those chemicals. Some people go for a run, some people go for a prayer, but most important, I heard you say, I leave the room I'm in and go to another. I leave behind whatever's going on in the turn, and I go to the other room and I let the body chemicals dissipate. In your case, you go into prayer, and
Yeah.
it takes maybe 20 minutes.
It's a
And then when you
reframe.
come back from that, do you find that you're ready to move forward positively, or is there a little transition period where you go back and forth
It
between not
depends. If
getting
I've
drunk?
literally surrendered and given everything back to God, it's easy to just start fresh. Now, if there's a residual, I have to keep reminding, like, you gave this up. This is not yours. It is not your problem to own. I would say if it's God's will, it's God's bill. So I'm like, this is not my problem. It's his. So keeping that in my mindset works every time.
Something greater than you. And when you go into that space, whether it's the quantum or the spirit realm or whatever you want to call it, there is a connection that we as people have with one another, where we're created into a universe where we are connected to one another. And it's so important. And the purpose of this show is for us to draw as many people together to say, hey, we know what it's like to feel bad. We've all felt bad. Here's what
Yeah.
we've learned when we feel bad that helps us. Why don't you give it a try? And why don't you bring in
Yes.
some other people that would like to do this with us? So
Yeah.
your company that you have now, have you left it at a certain size? Have you downsized it to something that's more efficient? What have you decided to do with the size of your companies?
Well, currently, everything, I'm kind of a lone wolf right now.
Yeah.
When I first started in financial services, I got up to 156 agents, life agents. And that was like herding cats. It was
Yeah.
just insane. So I made a transition to go self-employed. So I was working for another company. And I literally only took 6 agents with me out of 156. That'll give you an idea of how many agents are really getting after it.
Yeah.
And then over time, for me, it's just easier. I started working larger cases, and I'm like, it's easier for me. I work less hours if I work larger cases and it's just me, and I kind of focus on a client where I might have their mortgage and then I'm doing life insurance for them and I'm doing annuities and they want some money in trade, like I'm doing a full diversification play. I'm going to make way more money doing that than I am managing multiple agents that don't know what they're doing, or this one's learning and this one's a know-it-all and he doesn't want to listen. Why am I trying to herd cats when I know what I'm doing, and I'm totally focused on the clients that totally want my services.
So
Um,
you've got the gift of discernment that you've developed, right? And then rather than focusing on transactions, you focused on relationships. So you have to
yes.
have discernment to decide where you'd invest your time, because the time is the only thing we can't get more of. So in your discerning process, other than deal size or potential client deal size, what other criteria do you use to decide which clients you're going to develop those deeper relationships with?
Well, I'm looking for clients that are looking for long-term results. Clients that are not drama. Okay. Um, they don't need to be babysat. So I, you know, there's a saying that goes, where you start is where you finish. So if you have a client that's very difficult at the beginning, they're going to be difficult all the way through. And those are clients that I might say, I don't think we're a good match for one another. Sometimes that will, they'll be like, why? And I'm like, I don't have the mental bandwidth to deal with what you're talking about. So if you want my advice, that's what you're paying me for. Um, this is how this would go. But if you don't, you want to do it your way, obviously your way isn't working, or you wouldn't have reached out to me. So I just sometimes have those calls, or just have to have those tough conversations that I just, not all business is good money. Not all money is good money. Just because it's shiny doesn't mean it's something you need or should have. Um, so for me, I learned that going into this, am I going to be able to handle the way it is 3 months from now when this deal is closing? Can I mentally, how many other deals could I pick up in the 3 months of drama or hardship where I might have one really good deal because I'm focused so much on this drama person? Because I have one like that right now. I should have just said, and I'm still working on the deal, and I'm still babysitting her and along. She's just not 100% there. And it's how she started. And we're not even near the finish line. And I should have just said, you're probably not for me.
So what you're describing is you have the intuition to know with whom you should develop a relationship. So on those moments like this one, where you didn't pay attention to that intuition, now that you think about it, can you say, oh yeah, I did see that. Why did I go forward anyway? Do you have an answer to that question?
Oh, I do. In this particular case, I knew she was that way. Like, I quickly figured it out, but because she was referred from a very dear friend of mine,
Ah,
and the friend did warn me, she said, she's kind of all over the place. Um, she's okay once we start talking and I get her calmed down again. Because left alone to her thoughts, she's just, she'll
yeah.
let these thoughts take up real estate in her brain. And I'm like, it's okay to think it, but just let it go. But she'll hang on to it. So she's not a self-cleaning oven. Let's just say that.
So you did it as a favor to someone else. So you
I
were willing to
did.
take on an obligation that you normally wouldn't out of care for this person that you respect.
Right. Yeah. Cause I know it went from her problem to my problem.
Yeah.
But I'm actually able to solve the problem. So it's like, it's just some people take a little longer. And for me too, there is, because I do retirement planning, sometimes I find that I work with seniors and older people. And sometimes as people have been in retirement, maybe 10 years, 20 years, or some of my clients haven't worked at all. They've been housewives and their husband has now passed away and they're left with trying to figure out what to do with their finances. So I have to realize that these are women that aren't necessarily like me. I've been in the workforce my whole entire life and I've had to make tough decision after tough decision. When you're an entrepreneur, especially I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'm making tough decisions every day. And it's like something that is easy for me. It's got to be done. There's not emotion to it. It is what it is when you're running a business. But sometimes I'm working with women that, they were very loved and coddled and protected by their husbands. And I have to understand that their mentality is not like mine. So it just requires more patience on my part, which I get to be long on patience. And that's, am I showing who God is for me by being loving and patient? I get to do that, so realize not all clients will be easy clients, but again, he who solves the most problems makes the most money. You have to put your patience hat on and solve the problem,
Have you found that even someone that needs education, whether it be these women that had had someone else making those decisions for them, and now you're filling that role, that as long as they're willing to learn and willing to work at improving and understanding boundaries, that the relationship can still be developed and worthwhile, as opposed to someone that will fight you, someone that will not listen, someone that will not run the plays, that there's a difference between those two types of people. One that you would pursue, the other that you would say, I don't think so.
Well, here's what I will do. When I find that they're just running out, just trotting down the track and they've left me far behind, and I'm like, where are we at here? I will bring them back and I will ask them a question, especially if they've been referred to me and they're wanting to make their own decision, or they're making a decision in their own knowledge. Okay. And I've got 20 years of financial services knowledge. Okay. So
Yeah.
I bring this to the table, but they're using their uncle's wisdom that just their uncle made some comment to them 20 years ago. So I might say to them, why do you think Betty referred you to me. And then I just shut up and wait for them to talk. And then I let them go all the way through. Oh, well, Betty said da 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 da. And I let them get all the way through, and I'll go, that's really amazing. And then they'll go, I get it. All right, let me shut up. Go ahead. What do you think? So, so I have to bring them back to, why am I here? And usually it's just asking the right questions to get people to think, okay, I'm being ridiculous. Like,
So
if
how did you
if you knew
develop
the
that
answers, you wouldn't
skill?
need me.
How did you develop that skill? It's you're not, as a baby, you're not born to do that. So somewhere along the way, you learned to do that. Do you recall consciously deciding to learn it?
Well, I got into sales and escrow. Like, I got into the workforce. I'm really dating myself. I got into the workforce in 1990, and standing in a place of being in a solution mindset. So what I learned early on is I need to listen more than I talk, and I need to ask a lot of questions. But over the years, as I went from escrow or title into escrow, and then I went in from escrow into mortgage, and from mortgage into financial services, I've always been a top seller. My companies that I worked for always invested into a lot of sales training for me. And I just got to be really, really good at sales. And so, again, one of the things I did, for my mortgage company is I taught my people how to sell, and anybody that's ever worked for me. And so when I do, my money show, or I'm asked to speak, a lot of times I'm asked to come into groups for sales wisdom and to help people, especially when I worked for the big company where I had 156 agents. They would teach, I would teach them how to sell from stage, because they would, I acquired a lot of agents in 12 months. I acquired 156 agents in 12 months. And they wanted to know how I did that. And so I would teach from stage a lot of times. So just having so many people pour into me, like, they saw that I had a natural gift, but also that it could be cultivated. Like, you can really fine tune what you have. So I think I've just been really fortunate that I had people that poured a lot into me and helped me. They just perfected my gift, helped me perfect my gift.
So they recognized your talent. They invested in that talent. You gave them a good return on their investment. Do you recall it being a natural process for you, or did you have to go through a lot of drilling in order to refine those skills?
No, it was very natural, just because I have a problem with being number two. I have to be number one.
Yeah.
So when you have to be number one in everything that you do, and when you're very competitive, you just do what it takes to win. So it's like, I didn't have a big ego about it, if that makes sense. Like, if my sales director was saying, Cindy, go back, like, if I got a no and I'm like, deal's closed, it's done, he'd say, you go back and you say this. And I'm like, well, they told me they were done. And he's like, you're not done. Go back and say this. And I would. And then they'd say, okay. And then I'm like,
It
wow.
worked.
Yeah.
It
So I just
worked.
learned that if I couldn't get the job, like, always going and asking for help, I learned to start having the bigger pile principle, which was, if you have a bigger pile than me, you're doing better than me. You're better than me. So I need to ask you for help. I wouldn't go to the people that, there was always people in the office that wanted to give sales advice, but they weren't closing any deals. I'm like, please don't help me. I only want help from the people that are winning, and I think that's done me well, having that mentality. And it gets me attention, but it also gets me more help, because if I can keep my ego down, like, I always have the desire to win. Okay. But if I can keep my ego down about it, that's a big deal. When the ego gets too big, things start going haywire. Not good. There's no place. I call ego is edging God out. The second your ego gets too big, God can't work.
So let's think about what you just said. There's a fine balance you've developed between self-confidence and yet a willingness to endlessly learn and advance. So when you realize that you didn't get the result you were after, instead of saying that's the end, you may have to make a value judgment. I guess for this time, I'm not going to invest more in that for whatever that choice would be. But if it's worth the investing, where do you go to get that answer?
Well, now, I'm now in a new arena in, the Rich Uncle program with Tamor and everything that we're doing with private placement. So now I would go to Tamor for things like that, or, Stephen that brought me in. But in financial services and in mortgage, for the most part, I'm at mastery level on those because I've been in the industry so long. Um, I do, because I am a top producer for my company in financial services. Um, I have a gentleman that's assigned to me, and his only job is to make sure that I'm on top of the best products we have to offer. So I can call him at any time and say, "Hey, Andrew, I'm doing this annuity, and this is the product I'm thinking of putting this client in. Is there anything new that I need to know about?" Because I don't have the time or the
Right.
bandwidth to go shopping and go product shopping. Okay. I know annuities, and there's some annuities. This is the client situation. And I believe that this annuity would be the best one for them. But has the companies we work with come up with anything new that would be better than this product? And he'll usually say, "Nope, you're right on track, Cindy, do that one." Nothing new. So it's his job every day to always go through all of the companies that we work with and look for new products that are going to be better than the ones we have.
He's like a research assistant that's
He really
always
is.
operating.
That is his job, is to work for our company's top producers. So I'm lucky and blessed that I have two of those. I have one for life insurance and one for annuities. Um, and then I have a very good processor that works for me that I do mortgages, and she's always in the know. That's her job, is to keep up on products so that I can call and go, "All right, this is what we've got. This is what I'm thinking." And she'll go right to the correct product that I need. So I don't have to, I've earned my wings in that area. I don't have to do those things anymore. I have people, the right people to get me to where I need to be at this point.
So rather than being a lone wolf, what I really see is that you've learned how to get rid of those things that are superfluous and be the tip of the spear with support behind you, with people doing, let's imagine what they enjoy doing and what they do
Yeah.
very well, to support you in the efforts to be on the tip. Because even with all the knowledge of every product that's out there, the most brilliant, knowledgeable professor of products has no impact on the bottom line of the company if they don't have the tip of a spear that can convert that into a closable deal that generates revenues.
That's hard for a lot of people to have that mindset. Um, when I was running my mortgage company, and I mean, it was such a busy time when I had the mortgage company, and the rates, we were just blowing the doors off things. And at any given time, we had constantly people coming in that wanted to work for us. And I had probably 4 sales trainers and then myself. So my team, when I would get new people on my team, they would come in and they're like, "Okay, I'm ready for training." And I'm like, "Awesome. So go get a client and then bring me your file. Here's your file. Go get a client and I'll tell you what to do." And they're like, "But I don't know what to do." I'm like, "Your job right now is to go get a client. I'm not going to train you on anything until you have a client to train on." And they're like, "But I need to know what I'm talking about." I'm like, "Nope, you
They
don't.
want to know everything before they do anything,
It's
is what,
impossible."
yeah.
I said, "Either you're going to be right or you're going to be rich. Pick one." And they're like, "Okay." So when they get the client, they come in like, you know, what do I do? And I'm like, okay, go do this and come back to me. Just X, Y, and Z. That's it. Yep. And you're going to ask these particular questions, fill out this application, come back. And then I'd look at the application. I'm like, don't leave any blanks. Okay, now I want you to go get these documents. And I had one gal that came in and she was from the Philippines. And I had maybe 5 people start all at the same time. And her first month with me, she made $35,000. And this was in 2001.
When $35,000 was a lot of money. 2001, yeah.
Her husband came into my office because she was just fresh from Philippines, had just gotten her license. And he was like, are you running some kind of illegal operation up in here? Because apparently that month she had like tripled what he made.
Sure.
And he was like, what's going on in here? And I'm like, well, for the same reason you married her, she's a good listener and she does what you say, right? She did what I asked her to do and she made a lot of money. And he was like, So it was really interesting because everyone was like, this little girl that not speaks the best English just went out and just wiped the floor with us. But every step I'd say, go do this and come back. Go do this and come back. And literally she must have had 5 clients that month. She just kept every day. I baby stepped her along. And before you knew it, she had made $35,000. Everyone in the office was blown away. And I go, that's the difference between you guys and her is she's not committed to being right. She's committed to being rich. She didn't care what it looked like. And
no, you gave her a task. The task was go find some people, and then I'll tell you what to do. In fact, here's the questions you asked to get some people. And when they ask questions, come back to me. I'll give you some more answers.
And she didn't have a big ego about it. She was like, I don't know anything. Questions for these. It was very easy. For everything I did, just do what I did. Easy.
And do you believe when you started going down the business path that you had an attitude similar to hers?
Yes. Because I wanted to do well and I knew that I didn't know anything. And my boss used to tell me, look, used to call me little girl, fake it till you make it. He goes, if you don't know the answer, you act like you do. And I'm like, okay. And he'd always say, this is what you say. Man, John, that's a great question. Let me make sure. I think I know the answer, but I want to make positively sure. So I'm going to go back and ask my sales manager and I'll get back to you on that. He's like, that's going to add so much credibility when you can say that. And I'd say, man, that's a great question. And I want to be 100% on the answer. So I'm going to go back and find out and I'll get back to you.
And the more you get asked that question, the larger number of answers you have saved up. So you have to say it less often, right? You'll still have to say
always say, that's a great question. I want to be 100%. People appreciate that. They learn you're not just flying off the cuff with something. You want to make for certain that you're giving them the right piece of advice.
You're trustworthy. You're genuine.
Yeah, and being confident, even in my not knowing, because that was my confidence. That was my thing I could stand on. That no matter what they asked me, I had my stand in what I could say. That's a great question. Let me make sure I have the correct answer. And being confident, that bred confidence in me. And then after a while, a lot of people would ask the same question. So after a while, I'd be like, that's a great question. And the answer is, so I got some very invaluable skills from the sales manager I worked with back in 1995 in Portland, Oregon.
So you worked for somebody or had managers that were like you. They recognized, in fact, they may have gave everyone the same opportunity they gave you. You just took it, ran with it, used it, followed the plays, grew and learned, and now you built multiple successful careers. So it becomes clear to me that the success you've had in your life is a pattern, and being able to calm yourself when things are going haywire is an important part of that pattern. Being willing to let people know that you don't know the answer, that is a good question. Let me get it for you. You're very comfortable with that. And that has allowed you to learn an in-depth amount of knowledge about more than one field and build a successful career for you. Now, having had that life, if you look forward for the next 5 years, do you have a picture in your mind of what life looks like going 5 years forward, what you would like it to be from where you sit now with everything you know?
I really do. I feel strongly that I will be retired or almost retired. And when I define retired, it's I'll work if I want to, not
Mhm.
because I have to. And what I've done is I've set up, I took this year, if I were a normal person this last year, 2023, in my mind, if I were a normal person, I would have said this was an epic fail. Okay. I got into venture capital. The rates took a skyrocket. They went from 3% to 8% in 3 weeks' time. That just blew out my entire mortgage clientele for they're still not back yet.
Right.
Um, and I was like, I I'm not going to keep doing this because I've been through since 1990. You can imagine how many ups and downs, how many recessions, the major depression in '08. I've been through 5 recessions and a depression since I've been
Yeah.
in business. And what I learned is keep adding multiple sources of income. Okay. So I've done that now. But in this last segment with this private equity firm, I was like, I'm done with having to go out and get a new carrot every time I want to eat. Now I'm going to bring in residual income. So I set up now my liquidity program where people are putting money on my trading line and I make a percentage of everything that they bring in. Now, and I also have residual income in the life insurance side, but life insurance for me has been a lot harder to build a book of business than it is with trading because people are making more money faster in trading and they're more inclined to bring money in on that line. So I have now set it up to where um, I honestly feel within a year, I really won't have to continue working like I am.
So,
I enjoy what I'm doing so much,
yeah.
um, you know,
So
so
you bring up a powerful point, and this is something that's occurred to me in the not too distant past. When you hit the sweet spot and understand that all the skills you've developed for your entire life have now been brought to bear on having found a sweet spot in the financial world that has earnings that are beyond what seems believable, but they are real. And you can take all the skill you've got and put it behind building out a book of business for that. The dividends that it will pay you and your clients are breathtaking. Takes
right.
the it takes a long time to get there. Everybody that you and I know that has gotten there through their journey has paid a price to get to that point in their life, and you've now gotten there. So I applaud you for that. I thank you for taking the time you did today to explain your process to the people that are going to be able to listen to this show and learn from it. If you were going to leave our audience with one thing that they could do that would be just as easy not to do, what would that one thing that they can do now, not think about it, not study it, not imagine it, but to do right now that can have a profound impact on the rest of their life? What would that be?
Make God the CEO of your life.
And how would they do that?
Ask him, say, Lord, I want you to take over because it's life is so hard. Will you be the God and CEO of my life? You take it from here. And he will.
So realize that you're not the center of the universe, hard though that may be for some, and that there is something beyond yourself, uh, a greater presence in the all, that if you can bring yourself back to that presence, that you can get the power of, we'll call it good, balance, love, happiness, whatever, and that other people will feel that and they will go forward with you and you have a quality life. I want to thank you so very much for taking the time. It was every bit as enjoyable as I anticipated that it would be to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to doing business with you as the years go forward, watching you succeed and help others. Hey, audience, please give us a thumbs up. Bring us your friends. Give us we like you. Give us some comments down below. We'd love nothing other than to meet the people you know to come to this show and help us all have a quality life. On behalf of the Human Potential Channel, myself at First Fusion Capital, and of course, Cindy, we'd like to thank you for your time and invite you to come back. You have a great day. Thank you.